Hey guys, Tarke here, and I'm going to give you a little breakdown on my Magma Orb character, but first I'm going to run a map so you can see how the build works. Now, just to preface this, I've been doing beachheads the last 12 hours. If I stumble over any words or generally do any stupid things and or die, I'm level 96 and just cut me a break. I'm really tired, man. So what is good about this build? What is bad about this build? The things that I really like about this build is its amazing AoE clear, and it actually has passable single target. I think this build is very comparable to EK Nova if you've played it. The only bad thing about this build, in my mind, is the one graphic effect. Some people just can't handle it on their PCs. Nice returns. And the movement speed is lower than I would normally like for a build. But because it's such a pleasure to play with and relatively safe, yes, the HP bounces up and down, but it is a Vol-packed Berzerker, so that doesn't really matter. Because you don't get one shot. That I feel very comfortable playing this, which is why I pushed this character all the way to 96. I'm someone who normally gets bored of my builds around about level 90. So for me to play a character this much goes to show that it must be doing something right. So I can highly recommend it for pure enjoyability. Now, for hardcore players, this is, I would consider, a very hardcore viable build. Nice map clear, Tarke. Really 10 out of 10. I did mention I was tired, right? But this is a no region map. There is one or two things that you need to take into account for that, but for softcore players, I would highly recommend doing this build and changing two things. Queen of the Forest and Grey Sora. You put that in, you fix the one thing I dislike about this build, which is movement speed, and suddenly you're on like a really, really powerful character, especially if you're someone who can afford a Headhunter. Headhunter, Queen of the Forest, oh, dude, seriously, this build would just fly. And, if I either stuck on this character long enough to grind out a Headhunter or play this in softcore, that is 100% something I would do. I'll pick up all that stuff later, I can't be bothered right now. But that gives you an idea of how it maps. So you walk roughly in the right direction and you press right click. Now let's talk about what you need to make this build work, item-wise, then I'll talk about the skill tree and different variants you can do from there. So, the only mandatory unique is Sire of Shards. Sire of Shards is what gives us our gems, fire, and a Nova. And again, this is a Magma Orb build. So, with the staff, bouncy, 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 bouncy. And then without the staff, if you put your Magma Orb there, for example, rather depressing, just going forward, that's not fancy for anyone. Now, what also gives us our multiple projectiles, since we do not run GMP in our links, is the threshold jewels, inevitability. Inevitability with at least 40 int in radius, Magma Orb gets increased AoE per chain and an additional projectile. And for anyone confused, you don't need to have the 40 int specs just in the AoE. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, for example, and the same here. So you run 2 of these jewels, that gives you additional projectiles, which is why you can see without the Sire of Shards, we shoot out 3 instead of 1. Very, very important, and I would not recommend using Magma Orb to level with until you can socket 2 of those into your skill tree. But yes, Sire of Shards gives us 4 extra proj, stuff fires in a Nova, a little bit of all attributes, a little bit of all res, some proj damage, and some light radius. You can pick up Sire of Shards very, very cheaply. I 6-linked this myself. And that's really all you need. While you're first starting out, low on levels, low on links, I can highly recommend a weapon swap Pledge of Hands, purely for single target. Pledge of Hands is a very cheap item. Again, it's something you can buy 5 links like 20-30 Chaos, or link it up yourself. And because of the supported level 30 spell echo in there, and for bosses you don't need the Nova effect, it's just a very cheap way to boost up your damage. Alternatively, you can use a +3 fire staff, or a +3 fire bow. And the reason why you'd use a bow is you can then use it in conjunction with a unique quiver. There are 2 unique quivers with reduced projectile speed. Projectile speed affects the bounce distance of the Magma Orb. Let me move somewhere a little bit cleaner for this demonstration, since I know the particles lag people out a bit. So here you can see with slower proj, the magmas don't bounce very far, and each bounce AoE overlaps. So for raw single target, you want to have as many bounces in one location as possible, which is why area of effect and additional projectiles and additional bounces are so important, which is why the Magma Orb chain enchant is crucial. So once you've got your Sire of Shards, scour PoE trade for the cheapest Magma Orb chain. I got it on a Devotos because I wanted movement speed and dex. Get it on any base. Doesn't matter what it is, just get it on any base you can, and your build functions. Without it, your build does not function at all. You only run Stir Proj for single target. For map clear, run either faster projectiles if you're farming breaches, then you clear like 4 or 5 screens away, or Ice Bite if you're not using a Green Dream and playing solo without Poacher's Mark, etc. Other items I would highly recommend: Sybil's Lament for hardcore. I don't need Sybil's Lament to be safe against Reflect. I have Valpact, I have Cloaked in Savagery, if you don't know what Cloaked in Savagery does. 100% of damage leeches life if you've taken a Savage hit recently. Valpact, Super Leech. We get Leech from Pain Reaver. We have like 3% Leech all of the time. We won't kill ourselves to Reflect unless you're doing minus max maps, which I have been running. And I also use Soul of Yugal, which gives me 25% reduced Reflect damage taken. Because I've been running a lot of minus max, because I've been running really rippy map mods, and because I'm really tired and pushing this character, I decided to run a Sybil's to be safe. You don't need it, but for hardcore I would recommend it. And I would also recommend Bisco's Collar for just every single build. These are broken and you should just be running them in every single build possible. If you can't afford a Bisco's, run something sort of like this. You're looking for life, cast speed if you can get it, spell damage if you can get it. Multi's the main important one. So life and multi, crucial, and then if you can get cast speed or spell damage, brilliant. A little bit of resist is whatever. And then in this build, Dex will be the one stat you're missing, so if you can get Dex on there, great. Everything else is just fluff. We went for a belly because I couldn't afford a Combs. Again, you could run a Queen of the Forest if you felt safe doing so. For rings, just go for whatever resist you need. Life and strength is more life. If you can afford opals, use opals. Same deal with boots. Life, whatever resist you need. Enchants, which are good on boots. Movement speed if you haven't been hit recently. Elemental pen. Additional life leech. Avoid stun. Belt, nothing fancy. If you can afford a Headhunter, brilliant. Otherwise, just go for life, go for resists. And gloves, go for life, go for resist. You're noticing a theme. If you can fit mana on any of your gear, it makes your life a lot easier. And I just realized I think I ran a map without Herald of Thunder. I know it's because I stopped stuff out. For flasks, there aren't really any mandatory flasks. You notice I'm not using a Dying Sun. Dying Sun is really nice for this build. You don't need it. I got to 96 without it. I've cleared everything up to tier 15. Well, I've cleared all tier 15, everything up to tier 16. And haven't had any issues so far. For people who worry about tooltip, my tooltip is 56,000 without buffs up. With buffs up, it's about 100k-ish. And that's just with this. I would highly recommend a Wise Oak. They're very cheap. You can get them for less than 10 chaos. If you can't afford a Wise Oak or your flasks don't work, I would also recommend Ziri's Promise. The nice thing about Ziri's Promise is it fixes Chaos Res if you're afraid of dying to Chaos Resistance. If you're not running a Devoto's Devotion, and the only Chaos Resistance you have is this cluster here, that puts you at minus 40%. With that minus 40%, you can use a Doedries, and what Doedries does is it damages you for percentage Chaos damage, and that will always proc Savage Hit, which is actually really nice, and I shouldn't be doing trades while I'm doing build guides, but you know what, I'm going to do trades while I'm doing build guides. Now, other things which are worth looking out for if you're like going crazy min-max. Actually, Rimnoir's Resolve, the helm I'm selling right now, it gives you fire damage, it gives you life, it gives you cold res, and it gives you cannot be chilled or frozen if you've used a fire skill recently. This dude seems to be confused by my hideout and is somewhat killing my flow. Thank you, kind sir. Brilliant. Also, if you're not using a Sybil's Lament or a Dying Sun, I can highly recommend using a Ruby Flask just to make yourself a little bit safer against Reflect. For some bosses, I do drop my Silver Flask for it, but most of the time I use the Silver Flask because, as previously mentioned, movement speed is a big issue for this build. Your flask setup should look something like single HP pot if you feel like you need it. For softcore, I wouldn't. I would use another utility here. For hardcore, if you had a Combs, I wouldn't use it. I'd use another utility here. Because I haven't got a Combs, because I'm using 3 pieces of that life, I'm still using this. Wise Oak or Ziri's Promise or Dying Sun. Diamond Flask. Silver Flask of Curse. One of these is Curse, one of these is Heat, the other one is Bleed. Then movement speed on your Quicksilver. If you pick up Alchemist and have a little bit of Flask Effect Duration and have like Flask Effect Duration or Reduced Flask Charges used on Belt, then use an increased effect reduced duration Quicksilver. I currently don't feel happy running those unless I'm running Poacher's Mark, and I only get Poacher's Marks when I'm in certain groups. The skill tree is very straightforward, and you have a lot of options on how you want to branch out on your skill tree. You'll notice that I route past Whispers of Doom and don't take it. You'll notice I route past Heart of Flames and don't take it. Why is that? It's because I'm playing in hardcore, it's because I'm pushing for 100, and it's because I'm playing with supports mostly. So let me bring up Path of Building real quick. So as you can see right here, this is the build that I'm currently going for. I'm currently going for a 248% life in tree build, because frankly I don't need more damages when I'm playing with a support. This is like a level 99 tree. You obviously cut and drop things depending on where you're at. I'm level 96, so I'm planning on being a pretty high level right now. The main things that you can play around with also depends on your gearing. You'll notice that with all this stuff filled in, you're like just shy of 9k life with the combs. But this is like the core base tree at 105 points. From here, depending on what you're doing, if you're playing solo, go dual curse, because dual curse is very powerful. If you're playing in someone who does curse support, you don't need it, obviously. You feel like you're lacking damage, get Heart of Flame. Cool. If you're running loads of OPOP unique flasks, go Alchemist. Cool. If you feel like you want more life and more mana, grab that. If you want to fit Mom into your build, change your routing slightly and grab Mom. I didn't feel like I needed it. I tried it out, I didn't like it, that's why I'm not running it, if you're wondering why. Just fill it in, that's your base. I wanted life, I filled in all the life. If you want damage, fill in all the damage, but you'll be completely and utterly fine for what I'm doing. If you want a build to face roll Shaper, go for a build designed to face roll Shaper. If you want a build to solidly map clear, this is all the damage investment that you need. Really not that much at all. That is on a 6-link, but whatever. You can be fine using weapon swaps. I don't need it because I'm on a 6-link, so yes. The links and the thing which is pretty important, if you can get a level 21 Magma Orb, go for it. The way that you do that is you just level up a bunch of Magma Orbs, corrupt them. Seems good. I think I have some failed attempts here. Yep. The reason why going from 20 to 21 is so important is you gain an additional chain, which is an additional bounce. If you can't afford a level 21 Magma Orb, I highly recommend In Power, because again, each bounce is more potential AoE. So it's really, really important. So if you don't have a 21 Magma Orb, run in Power somewhere in your setup, or use like plus fire staffs. Spell Echo, Fire Pen, Crit Strikes, that's your 4-link. Boom, 5-link already covered. Swap in Ice Bite, Faster Proj, Slower Proj, Controlled Destruction on 6th. Other links, they're all pretty fluff. This entire build is basically up to whatever you feel like doing. I run a Flame Dash with increased duration, faster casting, Arcane Surge. It's just so I have a nice long Arcane Surge, and I run a level 9 Arcane Surge because that means every time I Flame Dash, I get the full buff up, and that is a very substantial DPS increase. In my gloves, I'm currently running Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice, Curse on Hit, Assassin's Mark. You don't need to run both Heralds, you can run just one. The reason why I'm running both right now is with a lot of the group stuff I've been doing recently, I find it's easier if I'm constantly making sure targets are hit by Assassin's Mark. With just Herald of Ice, you don't always hit like the rares and the bosses. With both, you realistically hit all the packs and the bosses. I just like it like that. It's smooth. You only need one. Pick your preference. In boots, I'm doing Castle and Damage Taken, a Mortal Call, Enfeeble, and then I'm running an Arctic Armor in there just as a loose floating slot. You can instead run a single Herald plus Anger, or a single Herald plus Grace if you're doing Queen of the Forest. Haste if you want to just run faster. You could just do Mom with one Herald in there. You can do double Herald plus this. You can do Blasphemies if you're going dual curse. I tried everything, all setups work. This is just what I've settled on in the end. And in the chest piece, none of these really matter, but I'm running a floating decoy totem to help against bosses if I'm feeling afraid of random breaches or whatever, but you never really use it. Castle and Damage Taken, max level Lightning Golem. I hate running golems. This makes running golems make me not want to kill myself. And then a Val Haste, Efficacy, Increased Duration. Increased Duration gives increased duration. Efficacy gives increased duration. I'm just using up my random supports. None of this is needed. You could run a belly, absolutely fine. And yeah, you can see that the HP is pretty solid because all I did was invest into HP. So with 4 pieces without HP, I'm at 6k. With a belly, you're pushing like 9k. Seems pretty good. I give this build 5 Tarkes out of 10. Like, comment, subscribe, press the buttons. PewDiePie, stop saying naughty things. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I'm really tired. I'm level 96. Beachhead, 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 beachhead.